So a transversal is a line that intersects parallel lines to create a pair of congruent and supplementary angles. You see that? Oh, I got a little crazy. This is the transversal. An easier way to write that could just simply be the one line that goes through two lines. Like, that's an easier way to understand that. It's the one line that goes through two lines. All right? There's a couple words that are words we've talked about. Congruent, it just means equal. It's angles that have the same measure. All right. And then supplementary are angles that add up to 180 degrees. So I just threw those on there because you will need to know that for this unit, more so tomorrow than today, but we are going to talk about these words, congruent and supplementary. So transversal is the one line that goes through the other two lines. Okay, that's a new word that you'll see a lot today. All right, I'm going to do some underlining and some highlighting. First of all, we're going to underline. So this is a new word, corresponding angles. So it's angles that lie on the same side of the transversal and they are on the same side of the parallel lines. And then we're going to highlight the word congruent. You can just circle it if you don't have a highlighter. And then we're going to write this here. Anything that is congruent, if you were trying to solve for x, if you have two congruent angles, you just simply set them equal. So that's just a little reminder when we're referencing these notes. If we're trying to solve for x and we have corresponding angles, we need to set them equal. Okay, and then we're going to come over here. I'm going to use a different color pen. You can use your highlighter or just use a pencil. It really doesn't matter. But I'm going to pick one angle. And I'm going to determine, all right, what angle is corresponding to this. So it needs to be on the same side of the transversal and on the same side of the parallel lines. Okay, what does that even mean? Well, here's my transversal. And there's actually 8 angles that we're dealing with. There's 4 up here in this group. There's 4 down here in this group. All right, so the angle that is the corresponding angle has to be on the same side of the transversal, so the left-hand side of this transversal, and also this one is above this parallel line, so the corresponding angle must also be above that parallel line. So I just drew an arc and then colored it in. All right, alternate interior angles are angles on opposite sides of the transversal, and they're inside the two parallel lines. These are also going to be congruent. All right. So remember, congruent means to set equal. This is just to help us remember, if you have alternate interior angles, they're going to be congruent. You set equal to solve for x. All right. So I'm just going to pick an angle, but the angle does have to be inside the parallel lines. Okay. So I'm going to pick an angle that's inside the parallel. So you see these two parallel lines? Inside just means like the interior is just in between the two parallel lines. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 angles that are in between the parallel lines. This angle right here is, we want it to be alternate interior. So the other angle we choose must also be in between the two lines, but they need to be on alternate sides of the transversal. What does that look like? It just means the opposite side. So you see how this one is above the transversal? We need to pick one of the angles on the interior below the transversal. It's going to have to be this one. It also cannot be the one directly next to it because that would be a linear pair. All of these new angles that we're talking about today are one from this group of 4 angles and then one from that bottom group of 4 angles. Okay? Cannot be directly next to it. That would be a linear pair. That would be incorrect. So this is an example of alternate interior. All right, let's move on to this one. These are on opposite sides of the transversal. And they are outside the parallel lines, which means they're like on the exterior. These are also congruent. So we're going to highlight the word congruent. And then congruent means to set equal. All right, so if we have angles that are, so I'm just going to pick this one to start with. All right. So it says they're on opposite sides of the transversal and they're outside the parallel lines. So this angle's outside the parallel lines. And then the word alternate always is going to mean opposite. So they're on alternate sides of the transversal. You can just think of it as one's below, one is above. So one has to be above the transversal. It also has to be on the exterior, so it cannot be between the two parallel lines. The only option that we have would be this angle over here, because they're on alternate sides of the transversal, both on the exterior. They cannot be directly next to each other. That does not work. So there's two types of alternate exterior angles. We're only writing one. There's two examples of alternate exterior angles here. So like this one goes with that one over there. Alternate sides of the transversal, both on the exterior, as well as these two go together. So there's two pairs of alternate exterior angles. But we're only going to write one just so your notes aren't super complicated. Let's move on to this one. So angles on the same side of the transversal that are inside the parallel line. So these are interior, and now it's same side. So this one is different. It is supplementary. All right, so we got some supplementary angles here. So that means they add to 180. We wrote that at the top of the page. So we're going to take these supplementary angles, and you'll be able to see, I'll point out like how you know they're supplementary. See how these are congruent? They're both obtuse. Well, one of these is going to be acute, and one of them is going to be obtuse. But for supplementary angles, let's just say we pick this one. So they're same side interior. So I had to pick one that was on the interior, one of the 4 interior angles. And then we need to pick another angle that's on the same side of the transversal. So it cannot be on below the transversal, but it also has to be on the interior. So same side, interior. Notice how one is acute and one is obtuse. That's why they add to 180. They're not the same. Like it wouldn't work for them to be the same. One is a cute little angle and one is a big obtuse angle. All right. And we have one more new one. Vertical is not new. So we're really only learning 5 new angle pairs today. Angles on the same side of the transversal, and they are outside the parallel lines. These angles are supplementary, which means they add to 180. Okay. So I'm going to pick this angle right here. So I've got that angle because it's on the exterior, so we need to be same side, exterior. So this is outside the 2 parallel lines, and then over here, these are on the same side of that transversal. If you're having a hard time identifying the transversal, it's the only line that touches the other 2 lines. So like this line right here cannot be the transversal because it only touches one line. Transversal always has to touch 2 lines. But they're on the same side of the transversal. They're outside the 2 parallel lines, same side exterior. So things that I want to point out. Do you see how the ones, oh yeah, I don't remember if I said, they're also called consecutive interior. There's 2 names for it. I use same side, but you may at times see the word consecutive interior. Just know they're the same. So same side, add to 180. Same side interior, they both add to 180. So they're supplementary. Everything else is congruent. What's kind of nice about this is same side and supplementary start with the same letter, so it's really easy to remember. Okay? Same side interior, same side exterior are the only ones that add to 180. And then we come over to this one. This one we already know. We're only going to highlight the word congruent, not underline anything. And I just am going to put an example of vertical angles on here, just so we don't forget them. And so that you can kind of like tell the difference between these. See how vertical angles touch, like at the vertex? And then all of these are separated. None of them have the same vertex. All of the new angle pairs we are dealing with today are ones from one angle from one group, one angle from the other group, not touching at all. And then the last one we need to remember is linear pairs, because you're going to have to know that. Linear pairs are the other ones that are supplementary. They're any 2 adjacent angles. They have to be touching. They don't share a ray. If they don't share a ray, then they're not linear pairs. What does that mean? So if we just look down here, this angle and then the one directly next to it are linear pairs. This angle and then the one up here directly next to it are linear pairs. Just try to remember the difference between linear pairs and vertical angles. So we have an angle pair, angle 1 and angle 5. We're going to let's figure out the transversal first. So we're going to look at this, and we got to find number 1 and number 5. So if you look on the picture, there's a 1 and a 5. Find them. Then you're going to take your hand, and you're going to cover up the group of angles that doesn't have Angle 1 or 5. So if you're sitting there and you have not put your hand over it, you should do that now. Put your hand over it. It's going to help you to be able to see it better. Okay? So angle 1 and 5, you got some questions to ask yourself. All right, are they on the same side of the transversal? And they are. Well, actually, we got to figure out what the transversal is. Transversal is the one line that goes through the other two. So we've got A, B, and C. Which is the one line that touches the other two lines? C. C goes through A and B. A only touches, this is a lot easier to see if you cover up the other group of angles. So yeah, that transversal is C. And then 1 and 5, they're on the same side of that transversal. So that automatically cuts off alternate interior and alternate exterior. Cannot be those, okay? And then you decide, are they both in the interior, both in the exterior, or neither? Is it one of each? So the interior is in between these two lines, 4, 3, 5, and 6. They're on the interior. Is 1 in the interior? No. 5 is. 1 is not. So they cannot be same side interior angles. They cannot be same side exterior angles because they're not both on the interior or the exterior. This is the weird one. This is the corresponding. And the one thing about this is congruent, supplementary, or neither. Well, the only way it could be congruent or supplementary is if we're talking about, like all of these examples talked about having parallel lines. Notice the only parallel lines are C and D. Because these are not parallel, A and B, we're going to put neither for this one. All right. And then, all right, 4 and 6 has the same transversal. All right, so C is that transversal that touch 4 and 6. So I can go ahead and write C under the transversal for this next one. Okay. And then you have to determine, are they on the same side or alternate sides of this transversal C? 4 and 6 are on alternate sides. And then are they both on the interior or both on the exterior? And in this case, they're both on the interior. So that makes these alternate interior angles. And then the reason it's neither is that because A and B are not parallel, it's going to have to be neither. All right, and then our next one is 4 and 10. I'm not going to show it because I already have the answers written in. But 4 and 10 are these next ones. So I'm going to now cover up this group. So 4 and 10 are, see, the interior is now 2, 3, 9, and 12. These inside these two parallel lines. The transversal runs horizontal. So our transversal is A now. 4 and 10 are on alternate sides of that transversal. 4 is below, 10 is above. And then they're both on the exterior or outside the parallel lines. Okay, so these are alternate exterior angles. Okay, why are these congruent where these are neither? Well, you have a different transversal, and that transversal runs through two parallel lines. So 4 and 10 will be congruent because they are created by parallel lines. So I want you to pause your screen. I want you to answer the rest of them. Just a hint. Anytime you write a transversal C, you'll put neither. Anytime you write transversal A, you'll either put congruent or supplementary. So answer the rest, pause your screen, and then I will show you the answer. If you haven't paused your screen, you should actually pause it, because I'm about to show these answers. Alright, so check your answers, see if you got them right. Just make sure you pause it, because I'm about to end this video.